James.
And I'm Teresa.
And this is the Creating Normal podcast, a podcast on living a creative life beyond mental illness,
where we share our successes and our struggles in life and in art.
Hello everyone, welcome to this week's Creating Normal podcast. I'm James Prescott. I'm your co-host with my good friend Teresa Golan. Welcome.
Hello.
It's good to be with you all again. We're going to be talking about another interesting topic today. So how has your week been, Teresa?
My week has been pretty awesome overall. Finally got the new website launched, so feel free to head on over to woundedbirdsministry.com. There's a lot up there that I'm really, really proud of. It's new, so I don't see the reflecting yet in Google, and I haven't posted anything new this week on Medium, which usually is a good source of traffic for me. And I've been super, super quiet on social media because it just became a little overwhelming for me. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about burnout this week, because I hit a point of burnout, and I'm just kind of making my way through that right now. But from a mental health perspective, I'm feeling good now that that's off my chest. Like I'm able to I did like 6 loads of laundry yesterday. I've been going through my bathroom and cleaning out all the cabinetry and everything, tossing out loads of stuff. And that feels really good because those are projects that have kind of been weighing on my mind, making my way through some of that stuff kind of feels freeing. So that's my week. How's your week been?
My week's been good in terms of mental health. It's been very good.
Good.
That's because I've had some good things happen this week. But also, it's just been a lot better overall. I think they're getting more settled. I'm feeling more settled in terms of my plans. Talked to my mindset coach, worked a few things through with them, which was really, really helpful.
Oh, good.
So that's always really good. Creative-wise, it's a lot more difficult for me right now. I'm struggling. But I heard a podcast today, which has really helped. And I'll share that as my little resource thing later on. But
okay.
But yes, so that's all been it's been pretty good overall. And even where there's been struggles, I'm feeling a bit more optimistic. Generally, it's been a good week.
Well, and our audience can't see you because this is an audio podcast, but you look like you are feeling more settled in your own skin. You look good.
Thank you. So that brings us to our topic.
Yes.
This week, burnout. This is a really, really important topic, and it's a huge topic. We could probably talk for a long time about this topic. So, and you suggested this topic, and it's a really good topic. So, what was it why is it you want to talk about it? What's your kind of story as regards to burnout?
Yeah, this website pissed me off. Is really where it got down to. I felt, it became such a. For all that I talk about self-care and for all that I talk about the importance of pacing yourself and having compassion for yourself, and I did a lot of things really right with this website. Towards the end of it, I really let go of all those things because I just wanted it done. I've got other things going on. I have My Undiagnosed Life, which was supposed to be launched 4 weeks ago and isn't launched yet. And there's some challenges there. I've got all this. I've got the devotional, which goes up for sale May 11th. It's on pre-order now, but I have done 0 advertising around it. And it was all because all my energy was going into getting this website launched because it needed to, and there's a time for being compassionate and dialing back and saying, this isn't my priority right now. But the problem was that this is such a linchpin, this website, for everything else that I have going on, that I hit a point where I was like, you just have to grind through this no matter what no matter how much compassion you want to have for yourself. So when I got that thing launched, I still have a lot of work to do on the backside. I've got to rename some image files. I've got SEO stuff that I need to do on it. I have a Medium post I was supposed to put up yesterday. I have 2 guest posts that are sitting in my inbox waiting for me to review them to go up on the website. But I have not been able to pick up my laptop and just open my laptop. And whenever I've thought about opening my laptop, I get angry, like furious, like enraged, like really frustrated with the idea of it. And then there's my Facebook group, and I haven't been interacting as much in the Facebook group, and I feel a little badly about letting them down. Not, at least I know I'm making some effort, it's the only place where any effort is kind of going into for the last 4 or 5 days. So that, at least I know I'm moving that forward. But I just kind of had to recognize Saturday, when I had a few things that I needed, and I'm doing air quotes around that, I needed to get done. And I was like, I can't. I mean, I physically cannot do that. And I was like, oh, Teresa, you really did push yourself into burnout. So that was just kind of eye-opening for me.
Yeah. Yeah, burnout is so common nowadays. It happens so much because we all work ourselves into the ground, and not just with our actual work, but with life as well. And we think there's this, I don't know where this culture came from, that we all always have to be doing something or we're not alive. In fact, actually, no, I do know where this came from. Facebook. This is kind of like, if I'm not doing something, if I'm not sharing what I'm doing on Facebook, if I haven't got an active life, people are going to think I'm boring. I'm not going to have any friends all the time and be seen to be doing stuff all the time. We kind of make this thing out of, like, everyone says, I'm so busy. It's like, it's almost become like a badge of honor to be busy, and it shouldn't be a badge of honor. It should be like this has gone along with a lot of work, not a lot of work, a lot of reading, studying that I've done, talking to people for my podcast as well about Sabbath, the principle of Sabbath. And I had an idea for a book about this a while back, and I never wrote it because I hadn't lived it, and I still really haven't lived it enough to write a book about it. But I really would like to do something around this. Well, it keeps coming back to me. I think I will write a book about it one day, but not yet. But this kind of, and it's, we can use the word Sabbath, and that comes from Scripture. But even without the religious connotations, the principle is that you have a day every week where you do not do work. And work, but the way that I define work is basically what you do for the rest of the week. Like, it's not just what you go, not just your job, but everything you do for the rest of the week, you just stop.
Yeah.
It's like, the Sabbath is a day, all your work is done, even though it's not. So, like, discipline. It's like a discipline. And the rest of the week revolves around that. It's not something you fit into your life. It's something that your life revolves around. So you plan for it and you prepare for it, and and I know a few people who practice this, and they've told me that they've got so much more energy, they're so much more relaxed, they feel so much more free, they don't feel they have to please everybody else all the time, they just feel more healthy in themselves, and I know I need to practice this as well. It's just so difficult to do in the culture that we live in, where people work 6-day weeks. Some people work 7-day weeks, and even if you work just Monday to Friday, then it means Saturday you've got to do a whole load of other stuff. I'm a single guy. I've got to do my washing and cleaning and all that kind of stuff, tidying, whatever, one day of the week. I can't do it. I can't do much during the week because I'm at work most of the day. It's not simple and easy to do. You have to be intentional about it. And I'm not saying that I know how to do it, because I've struggled to practice it as well, but I think this is what our culture is missing. And I also think that, like, in terms of a creative person and a writer trying to build a platform and all those kind of things, I think this kind of obsession with having to have a platform, getting numbers and getting subscriber lists, and the pressure that we kind of feel comes on us from outside to do those things and to do them quickly, and all these experts saying you have to be online all the time, you have to be on social media all the time, you have to be always posting things, that kind of pressure doesn't help either, and it means you end up, and it means that you get an unhealthy balance, because I burnt out as well. Right? I used to write almost every single day. I had so much material in my head. I just wrote every day. I was posting every week. I was just go writing. And at some point I just crashed. I just couldn't do it anymore.
Well, I had a severe case of burnout in 2015, which is like nervous breakdown kind of burnout. And that's what led to me ultimately quitting my job and then not doing anything basically for 2 years. And ultimately, landed me in a depression, which got me to my diagnosis of bipolar disorder. So I think that, just a couple of quick thoughts. One, I think I would argue with you that Facebook isn't the source of this culture. I think it actually dates back to the 90s because Arianna Huffington wrote a book called On Sleep. Because she almost died from a lack of sleep. And she talks about in her book how we have become this culture that does worship busy. But she talks about, in her perspective, it started in the 90s when, with the computers becoming so prevalent and the internet becoming so prevalent in our day-to-day lives, that economists were talking more and more about productivity gains and productivity improvements. And companies were looking at how they could get more out of their employees. And then the workday started extending, and then we had the recession, the dot-com bust, which I've, went through. And I think maybe that's not the source of it, but I think that this has been around longer than we would care to admit. But I think the other side of it is that, as a culture, I mean, at least I live in Silicon Valley. I live in an area where the entrepreneur is worshipped, where you are well regarded for taking risks, for stepping out, for being a visionary and an innovator and all that stuff. And I think it does put, a lot of pressure on you versus, when I was working in the corporate world and I had a lower level job, I stepped back from being a retail store manager and went into a lower level, corporate job. And that job was so easy for me to do that. Man, I was in at 9, out at 5 and done for the day. And, all of a sudden I had a life again. So I don't know, James, I'm just kind of babbling, I think, at this point, but.
No, I think you're right. You're probably right that it's not social media, but social media certainly heightened it.
I'll agree with that.
Because it's created this 24-hour culture. But yes, I think you're right. It's been around for a while. It may even go back to the 80s, to be honest, because that's when consumer culture really started to take off. People started getting busier and busier and busier,
And wives started going back into the workforce, and you started having, double income, no kids, the dinks and all that stuff. Oh, yeah, you're probably right.
Because it was like more is better.
Yeah.
So it's a real issue, You have to, I think it's really important that I think what's going to happen in the next, it's already happening. I see it already happening. So many thought leaders that I know have either taken big breaks from social media and come back saying that they're much healthier, or they're talking about it. It's happening with a lot of people. I'm not surprised. And I think more and more you're going to see people talking about Sabbath and the art of rest, what it is to be healthy. There's a part of me that feels that will probably feel a bit jealous of people or resentful of people talking about it who are successful, because frankly, they have the money and the career that they can easily implement that. When it's not so simple for people who are not who are not kind of writing books for a living and speaking or can arrange their own schedule. It's a different context. Maybe we need somebody who's living like the rest of us are, and not in this kind of little writer's bubble to write about it. Maybe I'm talking to myself here, I think. I think this is uncomfortable because I'm kind of realizing that maybe I need to write this book. Maybe I need to start practicing this and then write a book about it. I think there's, I did actually start writing my second book. It's not going to be my second book anymore. And when I did do a lot of research on rest and the human body and the science of it as well. And there's just this loads of science says basically you work too hard, your body is going to tell you to stop. It doesn't matter how healthy you are. You work too many hours. Eventually you can push yourself so far you have a stroke or something. It doesn't matter how healthy physically you are. You keep pushing yourself and working extra hours and working too long, it's going to come back. Your body will not let you keep going like that.
Yeah.
And that's what all the experts say. All the science says that, have to learn to manage our time better, and to, all of us do, myself included. Yeah, this is a real big issue for us.
Well, I think this is one of the things that I do appreciate about where I'm at from a creative perspective is that I do have the privilege of being able to say, I I'm a little bored with writing. Let me go build a website. Let me go and direct my creative energy somewhere else. It just ended up being a bigger project, than I anticipated it to be. But now that that's done, I can say, okay, now where do I want to put my creative efforts? And I'm finding myself pulled in two directions. I want to create some imagery that I can use, to share with people as comfort and encouragement. And I find myself getting the urge to dive into my next book, to get that really going and getting that started. And one of the things that, I find that even with how I structure my days, and actually, I was listening to a podcast, an EntreLeadership podcast this morning with an author by the name of Daniel Pink. He did a lot of research around the science of timing and how our bodies are designed with these peak, rest, and recovery cycles in our on a daily basis, and how the peak is when we should be doing the stuff that requires the most brain power. And I kind of naturally do that. That's my mornings. If I waste my morning going through email and putting together, collecting social media stats or blah, 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 by the time I'm done with that and I want to go write, that brain power is gone. But if I sit down and I write first, then I can go through and do some of that administrative stuff next. And usually by the time I'm done doing the creative stuff, I want to get up and move around. And so that's when I do my laundry, or that's when I, wipe my kitchen down or something like that. And then I can come back and to the laptop and do other stuff. And that's just a rhythm I fell out of, with this whole website thing. But I thought I really want to read this book now because this interview really intrigued me.
Yeah, I'd like to hear that too. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's really about kind of loving yourself. It's, again, it goes back to self-care, doesn't it? Why do you feel like you have to work so hard? Why are you doing that? What is that about? Is that about wanting more money? Is that about wanting people to like you? Is that about your insecurities? Is that about fear of actually being left alone with your thoughts for a minute and actually realizing that what's really going on inside of you? I think there's part of that in there, because when we have a space, we actually have to start dealing with what's going on inside of us. And that's scary for people because a lot of us have stuff that we just bury underneath work. And I've done this too. I've noticed this. Like when I started working full time again, my mood improved to start with because I wasn't spending so much time at home reflecting with not much to do. Yeah. So when that was happening, I was actually working through a lot of issues and dealing with them and talking to my spiritual director, therapist, and mindset coach about them because they were coming up. So I was able to get healing and, transformation and forgiveness and all of that stuff done. All this really good internal work got done, in that space. And then I started working again, and then I was kind of like, oh, I'm okay now. And then I kind of had a few days off work, and suddenly it all came back again, and I realized that I'd been using work to bury it, but almost subconsciously. And I wasn't working stupid hours. I was just working 9 to 5. But yet somehow I let that get I let that get in the way, or it got in the way. And I realized, it's so easy to just hide away from what's going on inside of us. It's so easy. We do it without even realizing it. And we need to make space in our lives for those kind of things, and to decompress and to refresh ourselves and actually have some joy and realize that and say, I'm not obligated to anything today. I can do what I want to do. I will do what gives me energy today, what makes me healthy today, and what brings me joy today. And I am not obligated to go to my laptop. I am not obligated to look at social media. I am not obligated to check my emails. I'm not obligated to write anything or create anything or tweet anything. I can just be me today. And that is a really healthy place to get to. And the thing is, if people start taking Sabbath, they might realize that they might need to go to therapy because of it. But that's a good thing, because it means that they'll start dealing with stuff rather than brushing it aside. Mm-hmm. Is what most of us do, and it's not healthy, So taking a Sabbath is good for your mental health. I mean, it may get worse before it gets better, but it will get better. Because sometimes it has to get worse before it gets better. That's the kind of the cycle of life in many ways, that things often get worse before they get better,
Yeah.
because you go to that low place. That's definitely my experience. Things got worse for me before they got better, but they are getting better.
I think that also, your point about the Sabbath is one that I really appreciate, because one of the things that I was thinking about this morning is that even on my weekends, we tend to stay home. We tend to run errands. We tend to, even though that stuff we do as a family, and even though it means we're out and about a little bit, it's not a break from our regular lives. And we're really bad about taking vacations too, my husband and I. And it just made me realize that, I think that maybe that's something we need to really be more mindful of really integrating into our lives. So planning a weekend road trip or a day road trip. So maybe on Saturday, we drive out to a lake, or maybe Sunday we decide to go to an amusement park or something, just something that's so dramatically different from the rest of our week, that, it really does feel almost like an escape from our day-to-day lives versus, let me get the laundry done, let me get us set up for the rest of the week. I think that's a really good point you made.
Thank you. I just think that this is all tied together again. It's all about like our overall health, physical health, mental health. It's all connected. The people I know who take Sabbaths, they are so much more healthy.
Yeah.
They're so much more in tune with themselves. They have a much more holistic lifestyle. They have a healthy sense of perspective on what's really important, and that's what I want for myself. And I think that's what all of us should have. I mean, that's what the Sabbath is really about. And if you want to talk about what the Bible says, Jesus actually said the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. As in, it's different for every single one of us. We can do it when we want and how we want, but as long as we do it, that's the most important thing. And having that break to realize that the world can live without us, and we can live without a lot of things in the world that maybe we don't actually really need.
Yeah.
And I've been off social media a lot recently, almost by accident. I didn't sit down and decide to not go on social media, but I started getting busy with life. And I just chose not to go on there all the time.
Yeah.
My mental health is better. We talked about this in another episode, but my mental health is better. My emotional health is better. I am less stressed, and that's just social media. But we need to learn how to the art of Sabbath, the art of rest. That's really, really important, and that's how you avoid burnout. Because if our human bodies are not designed to work the way that we work, or the way that culture or society expects us to work. We're not designed for that. And it's no wonder that a lot of us crash. Yeah. So I'm a big fan of Sabbath and self-care. Yeah, I think that's the way through burnout.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it just gets challenging when, I am blessed because I have, what I do, I don't have to show up at an office every day. I have a lot of freedom that I know that a lot of creatives don't, because in order to pay the bills, you have to be in your office every day. You have to, even if you're feeling burned out. And I think that the one thing that maybe I would remind people of in those situations is take a look at your vacation time and what you have stored up, and where it's possible, work with your manager to get some time off. And if you really legitimately can't, then maybe look at ways that you can build some play or other self-care into your day. And especially, like James was talking about, really establishing a Sabbath day just to help you change your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think and it can be a different day.
Yeah.
For anyone. Like, it could be Wednesday. If that's your day, you don't work, that's fine, And what constitutes work for each of us is different. Like, so for one person, it might be that because you write most other days of the week, and I'm guessing that as creatives, a lot of creatives listen to this podcast, that might be true. So you create a lot most days of the week. Have a day where you do not create anything at all. You are not allowed to. You turn your laptop off. You're not allowed to write anything. Not allowed to Not allowed to do any of that. Just, you have to just do something else, something which will give you energy, not take away energy.
Yeah.
Something which is life-giving. And again, that's different for everyone. You know, for me, something that gives me energy is sitting at home, just chilling out with a book or watching a TV, watching a movie or something, because I'm on my own and I get my own space, and I'm an introvert, so I get energy from being at home on my own, and that just relaxes me. And it, you know, or just having a friend over and chilling out, you know, at home. That gives me energy. You know, it may be different from other people. Other people might have something else completely, and it may be that something that you consider work, maybe rest for somebody else.
That's true.
Something that other people consider rest, maybe work for you. Or did I just say that? Or vice versa. Anyway, like yeah. So something that Teresa considers work, I might consider rest, and vice versa.
Yeah.
It's just different for each of us, and then we just have to figure out what that is and start to practice it. Traditionally, Sabbath began on the Friday evening, and it ended on the Saturday evening. So you'd have the wind down on the Friday evening. You'd kind of put down all your work on the Friday late afternoon, and that was it till Saturday night. Basically till Sunday, pretty much, because you don't really do any work on Saturday night. And you prepare for it all week, and you build the whole week around it. And it's like a discipline. It's just a way to have a healthy life, and I think we need more of it.
I agree. I think that pretty much wraps up this conversation on burnout and Sabbath. I feel like I have some new perspective, which is nice. It's always nice to be able to kind of talk some of this through, because, you know, it's usually sitting in the back of my head, and it's not until you and I sit down to have the conversation that a lot of this kind of just comes out, and I'm able to work it through, which is one of the things that I appreciate about, you know, our weekly chats.
I love these chats. These have been so helpful for me, actually, as well, and I hope they're encouraging for all of you. If you've got any questions for us about these topics, let us know. Tweet us on Creating Normal on Twitter. Post them in the Facebook group, Creating Normal Facebook group. And if you've got any experiences, share, good or bad.
Yes, please.
Like, we really want to hear from you. So get in touch with us. And if they're great stories, we might even share them on the show. So.
Well, shall we move on to the next segment then?
Yes.
What's your recommendation this week?
It's a podcast. It came out yesterday, the day before we were recording, so it'll be a few weeks ago now by the time this goes out. Actually, it's really 2 episodes of the same podcast. And again, it's my favourite podcast. I plug this all the time, and I don't care. I've got no shame at all plugging this podcast. The Robcast, Rob Bell's podcast. It's my favourite podcast, apart from my own, obviously, and this one. And he talks about, there's 2 episodes called A Beginner's Guide to the Undernet, I think. And what he's talking about is the underside of the internet. And one of the things he talks about is this constant, like, myth that bigger numbers equals quality content. And what that does to us. This kind of pressure to build subscriber lists and to get followers and to get likes and to get comments, and that actually that kind of causes a lot of damage, and that actually we need to focus on just doing good work, because a lot of good work that goes on in the world doesn't get noticed, doesn't get numbers, doesn't get followers, and some great content doesn't get that. Just to have a healthier relationship with the internet and actually have an awareness of what's really, really important. And there's a lot more than that. And it talks about some of the stuff we've talked about today, about having a healthy balance in your life, not being online all the time, being outside and, you know, building real relationships, and not worrying about how many people are reading your stuff or how many subscribers you have, and not getting upset about it, and not, you know, because it's not actually worth it, and it's not where our value comes from. And there's a lot more to it than that. But these 2 episodes, they are fantastic. I'd recommend listening to them both. They will change how you see everything. They've really been life-changing for me. And they've actually helped me get a healthier handle on my writing, because I've been struggling, I think. And one of the reasons I've not been able to write much, it's because I was burnt, betrayed. I had a big failure. All of that kind of killed my love of writing. And this has helped me to start seeing a way back. I would really recommend it to everyone. And of course, that'll be in the show notes.
Absolutely, that will be. My recommendation for this book, or for this week, I'm changing it. I was going to recommend a different book, but I'm actually going to recommend a podcast also. The podcaster, her name is Joanna Penn, and she has a podcast called The Creative Penn that I like. And she talks a lot about writing, and she interviews people on a weekly basis about their experiences with writing, and she covers so many different aspects of fiction, nonfiction. This week she had an episode on screenplay writing. It's really broad, and I always learn something from it, which I really appreciate. A few weeks ago, she had a writer on, an author on by the name of Charlie Hone, and they talked about play and how to incorporate play into your daily life. So I'm going to include a link to the podcast in the show notes. And Charlie Hone has written 2 books. One is called Play It Away, and the second one is Play for a Living. And he's really done a lot of research and study on play, on the concept of play, and how to incorporate play more easily into our day-to-day lives. And so I think that's the direction I want to head in today for our recommendation. All right, so I think that this has been an awesome podcast. I really have loved chatting with you on this, James, and I appreciate you letting me kind of dictate the topic today.
No problem. Absolutely. No, it's a great topic. It really is. And I'm glad we've got a chance to talk about it. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I guess that wraps us up. And until we talk again next week, create courageously.
And love yourself fiercely.
All right, everyone. Talk to you next week. Thanks for listening to the Creating Normal podcast. You can follow James on Twitter and Instagram at JamesPrescott77. You can follow Teresa on Twitter and Instagram at Teresa M. Cologne. Thanks for listening.